This is a quick overview and summary of the Holy Bible of Bodybuilding, Arnold Schwarzenegger's new Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding.
If this is something that you don't have, you definitely need a copy of it. If you're a bodybuilder, I guarantee that you have one. And if you're just somebody that wants to be fit all around, I think you should get a copy of this anyway. It's one of the most inspirational books that I've ever read. It's entertaining. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger's the new Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding. It was written in 1985, so it was new and modern at the time. Some of the things in it are a little outdated, most notably the nutrition. They actually talk about the keto diet as being a bad thing and ketosis as being a bad thing, which is obviously very contrary to what science has been showing today, as ketogenic bodybuilding is becoming more and more popular and ketogenic sports in general. So I summarize this book by describing it as a comprehensive, detailed guide of Arnold's training methods, nutrition, posing, and everything that you can think of regarding the sport. I mean, this literally covers everything. Resulted in 7 Mr. Olympia titles and 2 Mr. Universe titles. And it also has not just his methods, but like exercises that somebody else does differently. He has pictures of them doing it and explains like, hey, here's how Flex Wheeler does it. Here's how Lou Ferrigno does it. Here's how Tom Platz, Frank Zane, Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, Steve Reeves, Reg Park, Franco Columbu. Franco Columbu is his training partner. Lee Priest, Sergio Olivia. Like, here's how all these great ones do. I'm going to stop listing names too, because I'll forget somebody really important. So what I love about this book is that you read it and it's like watching a movie. Like, you feel like you're there. Like you feel like you're training with Arnold. Like Arnold's your coach, and you feel like you're at the competitions with him, and you get a real feel for his personality and for the personalities of everybody else. So you should definitely, if you do read it, follow it up with watching the movie Pumping Iron. So 4 years ago, this is why I decided to start competing, because I read this book and I saw the confidence that this gave him, and now he was able to apply that into acting and into all areas of his life to have the success that he has today. And I'm not saying that I agree with everything that he does or that everything that he stands for, but overall, he's a pretty motivating dude and somebody that's had a very inspirational impact on my life, not just in the sport, but as to how I use bodybuilding to superset into other aspects of more important parts of life. This is really where my whole inspiration for the mindset of supersetting your life came from. I read this book and I was like, wow, it's basically just like a giant superset. I mean, life is like a giant superset. What you do in the gym is just a very tangible way to be able to apply it into something else that's more important, and that could be unrelated. Hey, what's going on, Tim? Thanks for joining, buddy. I guarantee you have a copy of this book. So the most memorable quote for me in this book is probably it was actually in the chapter on the back, which was like my biggest takeaway from this book was, what's up, Tim, was learning how to develop the back. And the quote on page 346 from Lou Ferrigno is, "My back is a weapon that I use to destroy my opponents." I can't say it with Franco's accent. He's Italian. But he says, "I place my thumbs in the small of my back and then begin to spread my lats. It doesn't come on all at once. First, I flex them a few times, and then I begin to let them extend to their widest. Each time the audience and the judges think that is all, I flex harder and they come out a little bit further. And just when everyone is gasping with surprise that a human being could achieve such development, I lift my arms into a powerful rear double bicep shot, displaying enormous muscularity, thickness, and separation. Only the very best of bodybuilders can stand beside me when I do this without being blown off stage by the shockwave." So it sounds pretty cocky to say, but if you see his back and his lat spread, that is no understatement at all. So that was pretty motivating for me. And then he goes on, and then Arnold goes on to say, "When a bodybuilding judge looks at a competitor's back, there are 3 things that he is especially interested in. Number 1, the thickness and the muscularity of the upper back. Number 2, the sweep and the width of the lats. And number 3, the definition and the development of the lower back and the lower lats." So the reason that the back chapter for me was the most helpful was because I hadn't ever read a book up until this point that actually goes into detail on how to build the back. And when you're new to the gym, all the muscles that you focus on are things like muscles that you can see, like your arms, maybe your deltoids, your chest. For guys, it's always the chest. For women, it's always the legs, right? But the back is something to where, looking at all of these pictures in here, first of all, they're just motivating. Like, you look at these guys' backs and you're like, wow, that's incredible. And seeing pictures of how Franco Columbu poses his back, these were all really, really motivating to me and helped me to visualize what my back could look like and the different parts of the back, the different muscles that are involved in it. When you think of back, you just think of lats, and there's a lot more going on to the back than just the lats. He also goes into a lot of detail on how everybody's back is built differently. Your lats insert genetically at different parts of your bone, depending on the different parts of your skeleton, depending on what your genetics are like. The rear deltoids, same thing. The back is a very complex muscle group, and for everybody to grow their back, it requires different techniques just because it's so different from person to person. So he goes through a lot of different training methods, and he shows different genetic structures of different legends throughout the history of bodybuilding and the people that he's competed with, to be able to show the differences on how you can on the differences in how you can approach. And so he really helps you to learn how your back works and how to train it most effectively. So this whole chapter was really amazing on it. And then that led to what my favorite pose is too, because he talks about how to train the back, and then he talks about how to pose the back, and he does this with every single body part. So like arms, he gives you all his favorite arm exercises, how to train the arms, and then different ways of posing the arms. So on the back portion, I basically experimented with all of these different poses that I see. And what I love about Arnold's physique is, just personally, I've been told this by a lot of judges and a lot of my friends, that my bone structure is actually very similar to Arnold's. Not saying that I have the physique that Arnold does, nor will I probably ever, although that's definitely the goal. But the reason that I compare myself to his physique so much is because genetically, my bone structure is very, very similar. I don't really have a wide waist, which puts me at a slight disadvantage for something like classic physique. So his physique and the way that he poses to show his greatest assets are actually pretty similar to mine. Arms have always been a very, very strong point to him, and arms have always been one of my weak points. So that's probably the only real big difference. Legs are probably my strong point, and back. Although when I get very, very lean, I tend to lose that mass that I've worked so hard for. Hence why I'm taking 8 to 10 years off right now to put on as much mass as I can, because I don't want to step on stage just to step on stage again. I want to come back to win. So my favorite pose is basically anything twisted at the waist, because then I can make my waist look smaller, and then I can make my back look bigger. So that was something that I got out of here. I mean, he goes into detail about all this stuff and how to pose to present yourself in the most aesthetic way possible to not just the judges, but even something as simple as like if you're doing a photo shoot. He has a whole chapter in the back on in the back of the book on things that you can tell your photographer to be able to help you find the best position, have the best background. Things like if you're doing a shot outside and there's a mountain behind you, like make it so that have the cameraman go a little bit lower so that the mountain is like just below your head so that it makes you look like you're towering over the mountain, stuff like that. So Arnold's signature pose is the 3/4 twisted back double biceps, where he has both arms up. And that one is probably the one that looks best on me too, but I try to avoid that one just because it's Arnold's pose, and anybody that sees that pose would instantly recognize it as Arnold's pose. And I by no means would ever try to imply that I can pull off that pose as good as Arnold does. So for that reason, I have forbidden myself to do that pose. So my favorite one is one that I also learned from him, though. It's called the 3/4 back single bicep. And so what that looks like is having your waist twisted at the side, and I have my right bicep up because my right bicep has a slightly larger peak than my left bicep. And then I can have my waist look smaller, but that twisting at the top makes my lats look really, really wide because my upper lats are pretty damn good, but my lower lat insertions, I'm going through looking at pictures here and comparing them to pictures of my last competition, and my lower lats definitely need more development. That was something that the judges were telling me at my last competition, is that my lower lats need to come down further. So whether that's genetic or not, I don't really know. I'm looking at, what's his name, Franco Columbu's lower lat insertions, and they are pretty low. Like they tie in right above, like basically right to his hips. And I'm looking at my genetic structure, and I just don't think that they're there. So I can build the lower back by doing like deadlifts and good mornings, and doing like wide grip lat pull downs with a reverse grip to be able to isolate the lower back. That's the best way that I found able to build it, and it's definitely come a lot further from where it was. But genetically speaking, yeah, I'm never going to have the rear lat spread that somebody like Franco Columbu does. So for that reason, the single bicep twisted back pose is my favorite because it looks the best on my physique. But that's the point of this book, is like he gives you so many different examples that you can figure out what poses look best on you and how you can maximize and show what you've trained so hard for. You know, you can train as hard as you want in the gym, but unless you know how to present it properly, then posing really can't win you a competition, but it can certainly make you lose a competition. And there's nothing more humiliating than knowing that you've out-trained somebody, you've out-conditioned them, and you're bigger than them, but if they can pose better than you, then the judges can only judge what they can see. So the sport of bodybuilding is it's like figure skating in a way, because it's so subject to judges' opinions. And the more aesthetic and the more you can present what you've trained so hard for, the better chances you're going to have at winning. And you know, when it comes to the sport and competing for a trophy, I mean, I'm a competitor, and that's why I like the sport so much, is because I like to win and I like to compete against somebody. As a matter of fact, I love losing and taking second or third place against somebody that's just flat out a better athlete, because that makes me better. So really, I guess in a way, I kind of like losing better than winning. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm training to develop the physique that I want to have, not that the judges want, not that the judges tell me that I should have. It's helpful though. I mean, I like being, I like competing. I like the whole experience of it, but I mean, really, it's something motivating to help me have the physique that I just really want to have. So, yeah, the back twisted single bicep pose is definitely something to where when the judges ask for what your favorite pose is, that's usually one that I throw out. Or if they ask for a pose down, if it's tight, sometimes they'll take like the last 2 or 3 competitors, or the best 2 or 3 competitors, and they'll put them in the middle, and then they'll ask for a pose down, or they'll say, show me your favorite pose. So like if all things are equal, and if the scores are pretty tight between the top 2 guys on stage, then they'll ask for you to either show your favorite pose, or they'll ask for a pose down. And that's basically like they just play some loud music and you just throw whatever poses you want. So I usually do that one because that's pretty much my best shot. But like if I know that there's another competitor that has a bigger back than me, or that has a better back, and if that's going to expose the fact that they have better development than I do in that pose, or better muscularity than I do in that pose, then I might throw out something else. So my backup one is I don't know what the name of it is. It's something that I've seen some guys do, but what I call it is the left hand on hip, most muscular right quad pose. So I basically flex my right bicep, which again has a little bit bigger of a peak, and I throw that one out in front to make it bigger, so that it looks like it's bigger than the rest of my body. Chest up, left hand on my hip, and right quad. Both my quads are basically the same size, but my right quad has more detail in it, so I like to throw that one out front. And yeah, that's the other pose that I do. So sometimes I'll go back and forth between the two. So yeah, those are my biggest takeaways from this book. I mean, I could literally just sit here and talk for 2 hours on how amazing this book is, but if you're into working out, and if you are trying to develop muscle, if you're trying to tone up, which really is just a different way of building muscle, I think you definitely need a copy of it. So yeah, let me know what your favorite part of this book is, if it's something that you've read. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. And yeah, about to go hit some back and work on those lower lat insertions. See you guys later.